Well, welcome to the Dream Labs, Dr. Contrast Live, and just want to have just a quick moment here, a bit of a recap, going back to last week. That was a lot of fun, I think, putting that process together on some landscape architectural work. I've always been fascinated by that process, and I just thought it was really a lot of fun to kind of pull back a little bit, give ourselves a hypothetical situation on some landscape work. It's a different set of circumstances to deal with. Obviously, you're dealing with a variety of textures and shapes and forms. As we said last week in that stream, just getting into the fact that, breaking into the fact that there's a lot of variety in this whole process of design, and I thought that was one of the nice little changes of pace we could work with. So with that thought in mind today, gang, we're going to go back into a little bit of a product design piece here on some Dremel tools. A very interesting process product itself. It's a very handy little tool, very powerful little tool, and most of the stuff out there is pretty rectilinear and for a purpose, for packaging and the like. But it's interesting to see that maybe there's a way to look at these things from an ergonomic point of view. So I'm going to go through a series of rapid pen sketches here using a Toya, pardon me, a Micron fine line pen, and I'll probably throw a little bit of marker in, maybe a little bit of pastel and some multimedia as we go along the way here. But the purpose of this stream today is to just go through a series of generated ideas and what ifs and what these forms could begin to look like from an elevation site and the perspective, a little bit of technique and so forth, and just encapsulate some different gestures for Dremel tools and how they're handled and so forth. So here we go. Let's kind of start working with some paces here. Let's just kind of get some real quick little loose little sketches. I'm going to keep it real fluid, nothing really tuned in here, just some not interesting little loose sketches for us to kind of break through it, get some shape down. Not a lot of line weight, just looking at basically breaking up the form itself. A little bit of an offset here, take that back, more of that, extend this out and get that cap to work a little bit more, bring that into play. Another little extension here, a little bit of tone in this thing. Tell us where the baseline is. A little bit of a fracture here, a fracture there. Again, just a gesture. Come back in a little bit later and to put some real heat to this thing in terms of getting some texture, some surface in here. Maybe that's part of the standing tool, end of the process here. Just nice little fast little thumbnail sketches to get things started here, and really not concentrating on design here, just a search mode, so to speak, today. To put together nice little thumbnail sketches on just some elevations here. Let's kind of go back into this guy and just change pace. A little more same sweep. A little bit of a break on the back side. Let's take this shape through. Run that on. Get that part and just kick it underneath that. A little more fluid. Interesting. Return this piece here. A little bit of a fracture up on top of a break line. A little bit of this. Notice really rapid sketches here, not really focusing on really perfection, looking for ideas or themes. Again, let's get that center line back in place, the attachment, and just put a little bit of that tool together. There it is there. And again, just a little bit more voluptuous shaping through it, just line upon line, just looking at certain forms and shapes. Just a couple of elevations here, soldier studies, just to break it all down. Let's go the other way here. Let's kind of break this down. Notice real fluid, nothing really set in stone here, just going through it, breaking it down just a touch, building the shapes. A little bit of a parabolic curve back here, that's interesting. Let's take that center line right down and break the shape here. Let's take that on through. Let's come back and just develop the base. Bring it on through, and again, let's get the cap here. These are just really rapid soldier studies here, looking at what if possibilities of just putting together very simple little treatments here on design and so on. More line weight in this. Notice real loose gestures, just really fluid. Again, this is a nice pen to work with because when you add media to it, sometimes you get a little bit of like a black pen, something like this. It'll begin to really break things down, and all of a sudden it gets real muddy when you add a little bit of pastel or marker over the top of that. So it gets a little bit touchy. Let's go back and just kind of keep it going here. Just looking at some interesting little gesture. Bring that back. Complete the base. Bring this in. And kick it back. Let's bring the barrel out of that. A little bit of a different format. Really interesting, just how you, nice and lucid, nothing really set in stone, as I said before, just looking for themes and variations, making this thing feel a little bit more ergonomic to kind of work with and to grip with here. So hopefully we'll follow along here. We'll just add a little bit of tone to this in a moment once we get some passes in. I'm just going to get this guy to same light source from above, just kind of put this all together, a little bit more fluid in through here, a little bit of an offset there, change a bit of line weight, bring that underneath, bring that over the top, get a little bit more captive in this thing. There it is. Shadow underneath it, center line, again, product or tool coming off of that just to tell us where the operating end of this guy is. Just really, there's 4 little studies there in an instant, just kind of looking at variation in shape and form and surface, how to fracture it perhaps, keeping it pretty straightforward, a little bit more ergonomic, maybe you grip it underneath, for example, back and through here. This is all hand related here. This could be a negative system here. We'll show you that in just a moment. Start cutting some sections in this thing. Get this little undercut into that. A little parabolic curve. And a little bit of on-off switch up on top. Let's add that back into it. Maybe that's the on-off switch or whatever up front. And again, just a little bit of core line coming through the form. Just to give some romance. Take it away. Hey, how you doing, Shadow? How's everything? Good to see you too. I'm glad all is well. And please forgive the silence at this time. You've been extremely busy on some small program you've been working on. So good to know that it's all set. Yeah, busy, I'm sure. But that keeps us young, Shadow. That's cool. Let's go back here. We're looking at just some very simple little. Just again, I'm a big proponent. When you sketch, you know, and I just have that romance of this is how I feel about the line. You don't have to labor it over it. No worries. We're both in the weeds. Yes, we are. And the weeds are good. We're not pulling them yet. So that's cool. But back to, you know, the sketch technique to me has always been really interesting because a lot of times we draw or we see an idea and we try to pin it all down right from the get-go. And it becomes very non-elastic, it's very fixed or rigid. I'm really a believer that going back to education days, for example, where a sketch rendering should be that, a sketch. It's a thought or an idea. And the more you keep that fluid and lucid, the stronger it's going to become. So Dremels need a rework too on how to hold. Yeah, you got it. That's what we're doing here. They're less rectangular. There's a lot of stuff, you're right, Matt Shadow. There's a lot of things out in the marketplace that are extremely rectangular. So we're going to have to do a little bit of a formal study here, and maybe a little more shape and surface into these guys to give it a little more human control, handheld, much more friendly, much more fluid to work with and so on. But again, just really treating these sketches with a lot of panache and being very fluid. So once you lay down a line, you know, put expression and break it back again. And notice, not a lot of control here. I'm just breaking things shaped and adding this, and this means nothing, but it just looks cool. Let's take that line right through and have fun with it. Now let's build this back in. Let's get this shape. Here's my center line. There's the bit head here. Bit of an offset. Put a little bit of tone in this guy. Run this through. Accent that shroud. Maybe this has another again, maybe it's a larger parabolic curve where the hand just kind of forms in there, and it just makes sense. And then break this back, and then again, look at that shape change there. It doesn't take an awful lot, but there's a lot of just real melody in these guys that begin to take advantage of taking some substance into the actual forms we're going to deal with here. So let's kind of put this little Dremel tool back into place here. Let's put a little bit of a beveled head on this guy. Put that place in, and then just a bit more detail where that head is. There it is there. More weight. And again, just enough to kick this shape through. Notice a lot of design lines here to work with. It's back into that parabolic curve. So let's just kind of look at this for a second here and say, all right, if I can just kind of marry these guys with a little bit of a backdrop in here. Bring them all together. More about that later. More line weight in this thing. Then we ramp this back, add a little bit of change. Maybe it's a breathing system here. Some ventilation, offsets it, and then just put a little bit of that into it. Maybe this has a break in it here and a break in it there. This is all ventilation. Let's tune that in. Let's tune that in. All of a sudden you get a real difference in the character here. So that's gone. Let's see what happens when you put a little bit of marker to it here. Let's just do this. A bit of tone. And the nice thing about this product here is that now you can work this over the top. And without staining, notice how it doesn't bleed the line when you lay down that ink. It's just really a nice soft feel to it. So let's kind of go back to this. Let's put a bit of this change in it. Put a little bit of a core, a little deeper. Break that into play. real fluid, quick sketches. A little ventilation in there. And again, a little bit more fill, a little bit more power. Look at that. Look at the power in that thing, just being very quick and lucid with it. All of a sudden, it's got some life to it. I think that's the thing I love about sketches. Yeah, to have a system about them that just brings a lot of life. You have a real gut feeling about you. You really are enamored or really committed to what you're seeing. That's the thing about a sketch that really fascinates me. These sketches are quick, they're fluid. Hey, hi Pixel, how are you? Nice to have you on board. So you're in the weeds too, huh? You guys were really busy, so thanks for taking the time to join us here. These are some real fast little form studies, Pixel, just some Dremel tools. And I think one of the systems that Shadow already referred to in one of these guys, when you're working with them, they're all very much involved in being very hard to hold, difficult to deal with. So let's go back and forth and just add a little bit of some technology that's in there. Let's get a little more texture change in this thing. And let's indicate what this thing's going to do. So it's nice to have you on board here, Pixel. I know you guys are really, really busy. So I think every now and then, too, it's nice to be able to come back and kind of pull back in here and say, you know what, let's kind of do this. Let's put a little zero. There's my theta line right there, section. Let's break into this thing with a little bit of shape. And again, cross section here. Up, over the top, up. Just describing the form. And this little shoulder following that same shape. And coming along the bone line here. Into this. Into that, little bit of a break, and run it right through. I mean, look at how descriptive that becomes. Section there, and a section through the upper. All of a sudden, look how descriptive that becomes in telling your story. Yeah, we shall prevail. Well, you got that right. So every now and then, it's nice to put some, like a theta accent on it, and begin to really look at what happens here with shape. Let's do this. Let's go the other way here. A bit of a texture change underneath here, color accent. Take that back, deal with it, and put a little bit of stain to it. This might be a comb mold situation here where it's a lot softer as opposed to the hard rigid form piece behind it. So we've got that in place. So there, and that goes into place there. Now let's just tone this back just a bit. So when I come back into this, keeping it nice and simple, come back to this with a lighter form, come right on top, and just put that through it. And come back underneath it. And let's put a little bit of tone in this thing again. That's that. Put more surface underneath the skin. Hey, Starship, how are you? Man, is it good? I'm just thinking about you the other day, Starship. And now, let me stop here for a moment. I really am pleased to see you back on forward again. I hope everything's well with your family. I know you had a very difficult time coming up here the last few weeks with that death in your family, which I was really sad to hear about. And boy, it's just good to have you back on board. And thank you for taking time to join in here. It's really great to have you on board. So thank you, sir. Always thinking about you, and I'm glad. Hope all worked out well. There, that. Let's put a little more tone in this. Now let's use a value. Just kind of just get some roundness in this thing. Just kind of graze it off, but doesn't overpower the shape itself. Just put a little more form to it. Now, when on top of all that, we can still come back in and say, maybe a little more drawing definition will help as well. So we can kind of come back in, roll this through. Roll that through and just put some little bit more detail up on top of this thing, just to kind of give it a little more textural grip. Something up on top here. Just really focusing on some really fast, really quick, lucid sketches here. So very cool. So let's go back here, add a little bit more tone to this thing. Keep it all in value. Can be very minimal. And maybe just enough of an undercut. Maybe this is all value study here. Just enough of an undercut to give this a little bit more zip. I've always had the real pleasure of working with, maybe this is an accent cap on it. There, that's that. And then this, and on-off switch. Now, there's a pretty simple formula right there, guys. Just to put some, look at what we're doing to beginning to develop here. Yeah, life is going on. We're slowly returning to normal. Well, that's good to know, Nemo. I mean, it had to be a very difficult time. And again, it's so sad to hear about the death of your father. And I'm really pleased that hopefully all is coming back to normal and you're doing well. So thank you again for joining forces today. And boy, hope we'll make this worth your time. How's that? So what's a nice little trick too is sometimes you get this stuff done and you leave a lot of open space. So in this sketch, for example, you come back with a little bit of dry pastel and just begin to put in a little bit more of this all of a sudden. And the nice thing about this technique is you come right back in and eliminate an awful lot. You come right back into highlight. Let me just get that thing kind of packed up here. There it is there. Just a variety of approaches here to get these guys to really begin to function and streamline into place. There it is there. Just a little bit of that. I'm going to highlight underneath here and there, and then take that right on through the shape. I'm going to highlight up on top. And look how simple that is. Yet hopefully it begins to read that form. You begin to know what that shape is really doing. So just fun stuff. And by the way, too, always a lot of fun to take this guy and express at the end here. For example, back to highlight. And just to give it a little bit more zip, keep that thing right there. All of a sudden you're in. Back to sketch just a bit. Pardon me, get my stuff out of the way here. Back to sketch just a bit more. More definition in this. That break line, and then a little recess right in through here. And just a touch more shadow in here. Come on, that shape a little more acceleration. How about that, gang? I mean, there's a family of forms here. They're not great sketches. They're not intended to be. They're just looking for ideas. Looking for different themes to deal with here. And how that begins to function itself here, let's kind of do this. Let's go back in and go the other route here. Let's kind of bring this thing and reverse it. Nice solid insert piece here. Parabolic sweep. Tone this in. Shadow up on top. A little bit more pressure on the marker. And nice and soft underneath it. Just kind of give it more tone change. So it's got that kind of going for it. Now this has got a little bit of a cap on it, does that. Maybe this also has a little bit lighter body form going through it, so it's up on top, it's very light, up on top, through that shape. Notice we're following that form very nicely, right through the shape, right through it, into that end point, underneath. That's all it takes. I mean, there it is. You've got that form done. It just really, hey, Nemo, great to see you again. Yeah, nice. It really is good to see you, Nemo. I'm really, really glad everything's well. I really am. That's excellent to know. So back on through here, a little bit of accent line. Some graphics. Product name. Maybe a little bit of escape cap here. Release. And also, it's kind of nice to throw a little bit of multimedia in this material, where you start to look at what you've got there as far as concept sketches go. Hey, Shadow, good to be back. Yeah, nice. So let's do this. A little more tone in this thing, a little bit of pencil work. Look what happens when you start to do this. Really start to power up some of the offsets. I'm a firm believer in multimedia, but at the same time, being very judicious in how it's used. Not often do you need an awful lot. It just sometimes just comes right through the shape, runs that through, and there it is. That helps us define that shape ever so quickly. A little bit of hot spot up on top, drive the line through, hot spot it, and just let it escape. And through here, a little bit more shadow down through here, fine. little more pencil definition. I've always said this when you put these programs together, especially when you start drawing, for example, any concept work. It's so vital, I think, and it's an important lesson to be utilized at all times. And it's simply this. It starts with drawing and it ends with drawing. Every single thing, everything we do, that should be enough to state that, yeah, you can have a good concept down, but you've got to get that thing into a situation where the actual sketching or the drawing begins to define it and get the job done. Let's go back a little bit of a hot spot on this. Look at this. More highlight, and again, drawing back into it. Multitude of sins here along that shoulder. Just some more highlight, and then breaking that into light source. Just by breaking that shape. Is that cool or what? Not the sketch, but just the process. That is really interesting how this whole thing begins to unfold, and it tells a unique story. And the last but not least, let's go back in through here and have a little bit of fun with this shape. Let's put a halo or a shell over this thing. Nice. Doesn't mean anything, but it looks very spontaneous. Cool. Back into this. Let's just stain this in. Marker is a great medium. I've always treated it, and I think hopefully we'll get the point across to you. Parts might rotate this thing upside down, get a little more control with it. I've always treated it like a wet pencil. That's all it really is. You work with it the same way. You change weights. You go from the point of the nib to the side of the nib, and you're doing all this neat stuff. Ferrari red Dremels. Yeah, we should call this Ferraris. That's a good idea. I like that idea. Nicely done. That's all things now. Let's hope they're good. Scuderia Dremels. That sounds good, Shadow. I like the way you think. Very cool. We'll sell it to Enzo or Piero and make a fortune and go to Maranello and buy a Ferrari. How that? Buy the factory, not just the car. Just staining it all in. Just kind of look at that. There's a shroud. There's the beginning of the idea. Now, how do you begin to envelope that? That's a pretty strong statement, right? Not a problem. Come back in with a lighter value. Come right back through this guy and just stain it in. Run that core right through it. Look how you begin to change the character of that shape. All of a sudden, it's taking the curse off of that thing. And you're right down to nitty-gritty. And I thought it was a type 5 phaser from 20. Not bad. I think I'll keep that in mind too, Nemo. That's good. Let's go back in through here. Let's bring this into play. Stain this in. Ignore the form for a moment. Just stain it all in. I'm going to highlight the work. Now come back in and pick up the shadows. Now let's get that number 4 gray. By the way, I'm working with a number 2 cool gray and then number 4 cool gray. So let's put a little shadow in this thing now. A little bit of an undercut. Back in the upper on top. Get this umbrella or this shroud kind of toned back just a bit more. Bring it into this area. And get that shroud to kind of put a little shadow over the top of that form and bring it right through that to that. All of a sudden, look at that form. There it is, gang. We're just kind of pulling it right off the paper, just pulling it right off the page and getting it to hopefully function. Let's go back in here again. A little bit of drawing. Let's get some highlight on this guy over the top of that shroud. Into that design line. Back in through here. A bit more hot spot on it. Over the top again. Into that edge. Let's put a bit of a fracture line on this guy. Let's get this guy to really read through here. I mean, sketches should have an emotion about them. I mean, a definite emotion. Like there's a certain character or feeling about what you really begin to see in terms of just how do you feel about this stuff? What is it telling you? What's the story it's starting to telegraph to you? What are we after here? So let me turn this, pardon me, upside down here for a moment. Oops, pardon me. There we go. Let's turn this down upside just for a moment here, and I'll get a little more shadow down on this base side here. Just kind of a little more drawing back into this guy, a little more impact. And that. And let's get this guy. Let's turn it back around here. Very strong shadow over the top of that shroud. be a cut line for battery, load and unload. Put a highlight ahead of that. And then perhaps last but not least, then last but not least, a little bit of a backdrop in through here. Let's kind of pick some of this up. A bit of composition back in through here. Get rid of some of the overspray. And last but not least, there's phase one. What do you think, gang? Interesting start, huh? Just a nice little thumbnail sketches, just based on putting together a process of what do we do in terms of looking for, I think in this case, oh, pardon me here, get rid of my smudge marks. What we're looking for here is just a really good balancing act about getting Dremels to kind of be a little more organic in terms of how to hold them. Space Age multi-tools. Yeah, I think that's kind of a nice way to describe it, Shadow. I'm glad you brought that up. That really helps. Let's kind of tune this in just a bit more. Sorry about this. Let's get that in place. Put more shadow underneath this guy to kind of roll it underneath a bit more. And then some of that. Anyway, there's phase one. Just a nice series of passes here, doing some very interesting shape and form studies here. This could go either way. For example, we could turn this thing around and put the Dremel head up on front there. But these are all just really interesting in terms of getting some concept stuff together. Looking for themes and direction, and that's the reason for today's program. Let's put this in here, a little bit more concept into this. Pardon me as I turn this upside down. Let's wrap this one up. So there's phase one. Let's see what there's one. Let's go back and do a little more studies here. Let's kind of go back and use that same ballpoint pen or that fine line pen. Really a nice little tool to work with here. Let's come back and just get this guy to notice just walking right through the shape itself and not really worried about a lot of detail. I'm just trying to get some sort of a surface put together here for us. Need a little grip change here. Little fingernail scoop down through the center line. A little bit more fluid here down through the horizon. And again, that's just a really quick little way. You could grip this thing here, or do you grip it here? I mean, those are things yet to come. Again, looking at concept here to really kind of play this whole game of getting the forms down here. Let's kind of go the other way. Let's kind of change the view just a bit. Let's go back in. Very round. Again, just a really quick little study here on just basic sketches. I mean, just looking through the empathy of putting together a form and how it all begins to just melodically come together and really work with it and just kind of tune in just a bit more here. Let's get this all to settle back in through here. Let's get this shape to come in, break, comes in, forms that surface there. And every now and then, it's kind of nice to just kind of leave things alone here as a basic sketch. There it is there. Maybe there's enough information on this guy to say, you know what, all I need to know is this. I'm going to come back through here and begin to just carve some things into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Let's see what happens here. See a little offset there? Comes out, kicks back, completes the section. Comes out here. Let's do this. Let's put a little sway in this thing. That goes negative. That goes negative. And it comes back to normal right here. So that shape is going to come in and do the following. That little form is going to do that. A little bit of a recessed scoop in that top there where you put your thumb or whatever. Interesting. Let's see, Dr. Contrast. Okay, thank you very much for the advertisement there. Let's go back in through, get this form to read just a bit more. Out the little shoulder, out and underneath, and then this one just rolls and it rolls. I mean, there you go. There's a study right there in itself, just to put together what the shapes are doing. Not a lot to work with here. Just keeping it nice and melodic, very simple. And drops down, comes through it, up to that center line. Let's put that in red. There's my center line right there. Up, over the top, kick, into the gully. There it is. Look at that. Look at the section saying that all of a sudden you just grab that whole shape very, very rapidly and very quickly here. Let's do this. Let's put a little bit of connector together. Pardon me as I go this route. There it is, gang. So there we are. Now let's have a little bit of fun. Keep them nice and simple. Maybe this one just needs a little bit of rework right in through here. It just tells me where that form is. Comes out of here, into that, and into that. Into the body, the offset, into the offset, into the highlight, and touch it there. That form is done. There it is. That just describes that shape as best we can here. Let's go one little step further. Let's get this guy to read here. Get that gully to play. There's a recess there. There's a little highlight trail here. Let's get a little bit more shadow into this thing, kind of offset that so we bring out that highlight just a bit more. Again, working with a number 4 cool gray. More tone into that. More pass underneath. There it is. Look how that describes that shape. Very, very simply. Not a lot to be done here. You can go back and do a little bit of pastel work with it, but I would not recommend that. This is more of a form study than anything else. A little more pencil definition in this thing. That'd be kind of cool. More of that. Into that. Very melodic. As we said in the beginning of the program here, it's just a nice series of sketches that begin to tell your story Very, very, let's just really emphasize this guy. That's where the strength is, right there. That little offset comes right back out. And look how that drawing reinforces that shape. And I think that's the key thing about it all. Nice spaceships you got there. Hey, hi Chip, how you doing? Back to spaceships. I'll never live that down, will I? That's funny. So again, since you just joined us here, Chip, we're just going through a series of little Dremel studies here and looking at maybe some thumbnail sketches, some elevation studies based on getting some grip into this thing, a little more shape into it so it's not so rectangular or so linear. Very interesting set of circumstances. These are real fast sketches, just to get an idea down. And just like we did last week, for example, that landscape piece is more of a theoretical search and mode and looking for ways to kind of treat shape for a Dremel form. That might be the next generation from whoever the manufacturer is. So here we are. There's the first set we did. Now I'm just finishing up some of the sketches here. Let's do this. Let's get a bit of shadow in this guy. Let's go to this next guy and attack it. Let's get this guy to read. Let's get this little parabolic curve, and that's going to be an accent piece. I'll put that in place. There it is. Do the same thing on the other side. Put that little parabolic piece in place. Now we're going to describe the shape with shadow. The shadow man, he's already on board, I think. He's already here. There it is. Oftentimes, by the way we illustrate that shadow, we'll tell you what that shape is doing. Notice, offset to offset. So many ways to treat this stuff. I think that's, to me, the intrigue about what is taking place here. Let's see if we can get this other end to work a little bit. Let's put a bit of recess in this. That's going to be good. A bit of tone in this guy. Just keeping it as a nice, simple value structure. Probably means I turn this upside down. Go through it. More accent. More accent. More tone. And for what it's worth, let's add a little bit of detail here. This might be a forward thumb grip of some sort or hand grip. Let's put a little accent to it. Highlight and accent. We'll come back and detail that in just a moment, but I want to block in some of the surfaces, some of the shapes. Hey Nemo, you still there? Hope all is well. This is making sense for you here. We're just going to fly through some real quick concept sketches here. Get those guys to start a little bit. Now let's come back in with that same light tone and illustrate the shape down underneath. Across the highlight. Into the shadow. A little more tone down below here in a second. You notice how I was very careful to stay away from that shadow for this reason. I'm going to come back in and do this. Accentuate that break line. Get the shadow to work a little bit more. Tone that in. Bring it back to normal. Get this to go through. Add a little bit more of this light to dark. Let's change the pace here. More shadow definition. Real quick, real lucid. And another little thumbnail sketch. There it is, right there. Yep. Let's see. Red makes that's we had me to laugh out loud. Space or Dremels. It's good to have you guys on board, man. I miss you an awful lot there, Neiman. I'm really glad you're doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. It's really great to have you on board. Last but not least, just doing a couple of more theme notes here. Let's get this guy rolling. Ready? Let's kind of stain this in. Keep it nice and simple. A little bit of tone in the underbelly here. Gonna block that in. Just a bit. Come back in again. Real strong core through the shape. Notice I'm working extremely quick with this marker because, again, as we said in the very beginning of the program here, working with this guy, it's just like working with I treat that marker just like a wet pencil. That's all it really is to me. Just drawing with an animated stick. You get very just animated with it. Come back underneath here, just a little more tone. Underneath, a little more tone there, and through here. We'll come back and cover that in just a moment. Come back underneath the shape. And for what it's worth, add a little more color to this guy. A bit of shadow underneath here. Let's take that right through. Or upside down, pardon me. There's a cut line in there. Now, last but not least, back to our old friend here, pastel. Let's put a little bit of that in place here to kind of finish off the surface. See what we can come up with here. Let's kind of walk it through. Take it off the page just a bit. And look at how I just begin to finish that surface off. Just kind of give it enough romance to work with here. What about a red LED on the top? Yeah, it sounds pretty good to me. Let's try that. How's that? That sound look pretty good there? Nemo got her. Space. Okay, there we are. Let's see what happens here. Let's kind of go back and define this guy a little bit more. Let's get this ballpoint, this pen out here. Just kind of put more detail into this thing. Slow it down just a bit. A bit of drawing change. I'm going to finish out this radius just a little bit and then split it. Notice again, drawing back into it makes a huge difference, gang. I'm just putting more drawing definition back into the shape so it's not so bland, but it gives it more character to it. Let's put this into place here. And we'll also use a little bit of reflected light underneath the shape to kind of give that shape to it, a little bit of form to it. And there she is there. That kind of helps just a bit. A little bit of highlight. Same thing back in through here. Take this shape, put a little more highlight back into it. No need to put anything down on the bottom there. Well, we could do this. It'll help to define that last piece there. A little bit of hot spot here, there, and there. All of a sudden, it gives it a little bit more life to work with here. Awesome. Oh, such little color accents really make it. Yeah, it is just takes a very simple amount of time here. Then what I kind of put together here, let's kind of straighten this sketch out just a bit more here. More definition. There it is. Take that right through. Doesn't take an awful lot. You're absolutely correct. It's just a very simple set of circumstances. Now you can have a little more pencil in this thing. I want to strengthen that core a little bit more. Fine. Put that pencil in place. It just kind of emboldens that whole form. Just kind of lets it sing off the page. But look at the distinction in three approaches. All just marker, ballpoint pen, and the micron piece. And then all of a sudden, just a nice little pen sketch here. There's a little bit more drawing definition. It's a little bit overdone here as far as I wouldn't go that far, but again, it gets the theme down, I guess. Then this guy right here, just a very simple pass. You're putting together what the marker and the pen and the multimedia system can do for us. So again, a very interesting process here. So let me just kind of wrap this up. Let's do this. What I love about this is that eraser kind of come right back in and get a little bit more highlight back into this thing. Look at that. Again, much more animation. There it is. And then take the back side off of this thing. A little more action back in there. As far as we're concerned, we can leave that whole background as is. I mean, I'm just a nice little line play here to keep it all intact. Put more definition in this separation line here. That's that. And there's plate number 2. Look at that, just as quick as it comes together. I mean, very rapid sketches, but they tell a story here, hopefully. Let's move around here. That's 2. Let's try just one real quick little study here, maybe just in drawing form itself. Just go back to just a good old-fashioned basic drawing with that pen. Come back in a very strong statement. real quickly. Add a little bit of form to this thing. Only Doc can make a Dremel look like a work of art. That's pretty funny. Thanks very much, Chip. But you're capable of doing the same thing, my man, I'm certain. So there we are. Let's put a little bit of form in this guy now. Underneath, a little bit of surface. And that shape right there. A little bit of an offset. Over the top. Very simple surface work. Highlight the shadow. Let the paper come through and develop the form just a bit more. Let's just do this and switch gears here for a such. Little accent piece back here. And there's a basic shape right there. You've got that thing just running like gangbusters. And don't do an accent on this thing, no problem. Let's come back in here, give it a little bit of this. A little bit of detail there. Put a drawing back in here. Let's put a little bit of the surface in this thing too, so it's got a bit of shadow definition. And there you go. That helps when we're passing to this base. Once again, notice how quickly I'm working with this marker. And I'm not laboring over anything. I'm just kind of cranking it in very, very quickly. Hey, Chip 7, glad to see you here. It's nice. How you doing, Pixel? You doing okay? Only Doc. Hey, Chip. Very good. Okay, I think I'm caught up here. Just going to get this shadow to work a little bit more. Tone that in just a bit more. And there it is. And then just for fun, let's come back and really accentuate that shadow, that undercut. Put some real speed in this thing. Cooling port up on top there, a la Lamborghini. That could be kind of a neat little Lamborghini. How about that for a Dremel? That's cool. Salute. Very cool. Hey, Pixel 8. Very good, good, good. Here we are. Let's just kind of keep carrying. Let's move along here with a fine little ballpoint pen sketch. Let's get this guy put together here. Down through the center line. Get that break in through here. Let's get that little cross-section line in here. That's going to come forward on this piece, or that's going to get a cut line here. And put that little reverse in here. There's my intake, and there's that shape that comes down off of that form. Revise it just a bit. A bit of a revised shape here. Just kind of stiffen it up a little bit. Take some of the bend out of it. That help. More definition in that body line here. Let's kind of go back to a pencil to get that kind of read here. Let's get that intake piece. There's my intake. A little bit of it on that side. This comes back and picks up those. Some venting or cooling systems back in through here. It's got that line to come back into play here. There it is. Put the surface back in through here. Let's get this guy to work. And a little bit of tone underneath, and we're almost there. More stain in there. Drive it off the page just a bit, and then just bring it right up through the highlight. And again, notice how quickly I'm working with this marker, really trying to accentuate what those shapes are doing. And there it is. It's just really interesting here. Let's see. Like a Ferrari, I've never used them Dremels for fear of getting them dirty. That's funny. Nice. Hey, hi Doug, how are you? Good to have you on board there, Chief. Thanks for joining us here for a minute here. Let's go back and do a little more drawing definition of this guy now. Just kind of finish this whole set out here. Again, the purpose of today's set, just looking at very quick, rapid sketches. I'm doing some really interesting little form studies for maybe a potential Dremel sketch or a Dremel tool. Get more hand related, less blocky, maybe a little more form involved in this thing. So we kind of come down the pike here with this skill. Just get this shape in place here. Run that through it. That shadow into place over the top of that marker. Use a marker as a base, so to speak. Come back in. And if we need to, just add a little bit of this to it. A bit of pastel. Break that shape down. And again, we'll just kind of bring the two together. The eraser is a highlight tool. Isn't that neat how that works? Just very interesting how the whole thing just all comes together. And then here we are. Let's put this aside here for a second. Let's put a little bit of drama in this side now. And we'll just finish it off here with a little bit of frame. Kind of border it a bit. And there they are. They're connected. There's another little family of sketches there, guys. Just putting together some really good, rapid, well, not good sketches, but just rapid ideas about what ifs. And let's put a little bit of detail in this thing now so it kind of matters. A little hot spot back in through here. A little hot spot through here. Just got to read just a little more drawing time on top of this thing. As I said, this has been the very beginning of the actual stream itself, how important it is to learn a very simple but useful method. That is, get used to drawing back in. Finish the sketch by drawing back into it. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what that drawing surface will do for you. So there's another little pass. Let me get rid of this mess here, guys. Sorry about that. It's one of the things about pastel. You have to be careful. Sometimes it gets really touchy in terms of how to work with it. Let's just see what happens here. Take Nemo's page here. and get a little bit more section. Now we have Tactical Fighter. There it is, guys. How's that? A little more drawing back into it, and just a lot of fun to just push the envelope a bit here. See what we can come up with here. Let's just do this. Let's wrap this thing up by doing the following. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I mean, there's a real joy in putting together concept sketches with the idea of just bursting into something with a whole fresh look at certain things and how we can kind of deal with it and how to work with it. Captain Nemo. So, although it's great to watch, I have to drop out and let my dog out, but it just goes designing them up. Hey, very good, Nemo. Thank you so much for taking the time to join in. And again, I'm so glad to hear that you're doing well and your family and everything's almost back to normal. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I wish you all the very best. Stay in touch, please, and I'll do likewise. Let's go back and review here. This is where I started. We came back in with a series of thumbnail sketches that we did this. Pardon me. We started the whole process by looking at a series of family of sketches by coming back in and saying, here's a series of little soldier studies based on this whole idea of getting a form down and looking for a new way of looking at maybe to hold a Dremel, a little bit more organic, less cubistic, less rectangular. And that's what it is. And just simple, very fast elevation soldier sketches to look for a form or a theme. Everything's kind of unique unto itself, a little more linear, a little more organic, much more organic, and very flamboyant, but still hopefully meeting the needs for grip and so forth, how to work with it. So that was the first one we did. I'm going to switch gears and into a little perspective studies on maybe just what it takes to do a form study with a little bit of section to it, a little bit of tone to it, keeping it simple. Put in more pencil, full media with marker, the Micron pen, a little bit of marker and some pastel and some pencil. Just very interesting set of circumstances. Two variations, or three variations in perspective, just looking at shape. How do we grip this thing? Is it forward? Is it rearward? How do we utilize it? And the thing I want to stress on this one is as a little cattail, that little catwalk out here that really begins to step out on the shape. Might be an indication where your hand or your thumb might go over the top of that. So we can continue. The point being, hopefully as you go through these exercises, you begin to see certain things that you started with, and all of a sudden you go back and look at the shapes, and you think, oh, they're going to modify that by doing this. This could be kind of fun to do. So again, it opens up the door of opportunity. And I think that's the nice thing about going these rapid sketches like this. And the last one we did was a very flamboyant, very super fluid Dremel tool that has the capability of just being almost rocket-like. So that's kind of neat. Not the sketch, but the thinking process of being very adventuresome, very bold, and assertive. It might never function, but you're looking at ideas. And ideas are what makes things click. That's the process by which newness comes about. Take the chance, take the risk. It's really worthwhile, for example, be intentional. And I think that's what I want to stress in this session today, how intentionality leads to decision making. Once you decide on something and you're intentional about it, your sketches will show that. I hope these sketches project to you a sense of spirit and a sense of adventure and a sense of, boy, I'm committed to this thing. It might not be the greatest thing in the world, but I'm ready to put my heart and soul in these sketches to kind of let them tell their story without me saying an awful lot. So to those of you watching, thank you so much. That's a quick review of where we were today, and really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. I might pick it up tomorrow and do a little more definition and maybe slow some things down, or maybe change subject matter. And while I'm on that subject matter, please feel free at any given time to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. If there's something you want me to work on or show or illustrate or teach, I'll try to do my best to get to it and work with you on this thing. So, and hopefully that'll come to pass. And one last thing too, if you're interested, I really want to build this audience. So if you'd be kind enough to really add to, for example, tell individuals, for example, what you're seeing today, and if that's inspiring to them or helps them, I'd appreciate you telling my story and noising it abroad. I want to build this program to really make a difference in individuals going through the process, developing ideas and sketch rendering skills for industrial design. Also, if you have a moment, check my website out at drcontrast.com, where you pick up lessons and basic drawing skills. I'm in the present category now, putting together a script for a phase 2 and an intermediate series where I'm going to start breaking into 6 lessons of different product design, transportation design, interior space and architecture and adding to it. So stay tuned. There's more coming. And last but not least, visit the web store. I'm trying to get some things up on that. I'm still having a hard time getting that book up in place, but I want to get that squared away to you for those of you as well. So all those announcements, thank you for the time spent here today. Wish you all the very best, and take care of yourself. Have a great day. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 4:30 when I go from probably from 4 to 5, and I kind of pick this story up, or maybe change gears and go to a different product, whatever. But we'll keep it going. And I always sign off with this because I think it's extremely vital and the most important aspect of the entire process and the entire session. That's simply this: never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Take care, gang, and all the very best. Thanks, Chip, and Captain Nemo, if you're still there. Shadow, Pixel, thanks so much for joining forces here. Have a great day, all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.